One.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa Podcast. Our podcast offers bold commentary on various subject matters with a laser-like focus on the truth. My name is Ray Tampa, and I'm the host of the Ray Tampa Podcast. We have in our studio Mr. Russell Cato, a retired educator with more than 40 plus years of experience in the Pinellas County schools, and Mr. Jamie Wilson III, a healthcare provider with more than 25 years working as a physical therapist. My co-host, my dynamic co-host. Today, we welcome as our guest, Ms. Maria Scruggs, founder and director of the Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read program. Ms. Scruggs, we're very happy to have you join us to share all the valuable information about your program.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray, for having me.
Most definitely. Ms. Scruggs, please share with our listeners a little information about yourself, such as where were you born, raised, and educated?
Okay, that's relatively simple. I'm a homegrown girl from right here in St. Petersburg. Graduated, of course, from Northeast High School and went on to Florida State, where I earned my Bachelor of Science degree and have a master's from the Grand Canyon University, and have a 40 plus year, as I'm a certified public manager in the state of Florida, a designation which I take very seriously, which is how I'm able to build the kind of public organizations I'm able to build and the accountability that goes into that. I'm a criminologist, of course, by practice, former special agent, beverage agent, state attorney's investigator, and now I'm currently a program administrator for the pretrial diversion and pretrial release programs and drug testing in Orange County. So I travel to Orlando daily and have been doing so for 18 years. Every morning, Monday through Friday. A good government job.
Certainly, we say we appreciate all that information. Excellent information.
Thank you.
As we begin this discussion, I want to ask you to talk to us about the background reasoning for naming the program the Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read program.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me correct one thing, because I think that's the misnomer, that Phyllis Wheatley is not a program. Okay. It is a campaign. Okay. And we're very intentional on using that language, because when you're trying to raise the awareness on the civil rights issue that only 25% at this time that this campaign was developing, only 25% of African children attending Pinellas County schools were reading on grade level. And in my capacity as the NAACP president, we declared that a major civil rights issue. So we had programs, because back then we were spending between Pinellas County Juvenile Welfare Board, Pinellas County government, and the Pinellas County school system, we had spent $43 million during that fiscal year on programs, but we still had only a very small percentage of African children that were reading on grade level. So programs were not working. One of the things that I'm sure you guys remember, because we're all in the same age group, is the Reading is Fundamental campaign, when America realized that America couldn't read. So America didn't go and create programs. What they did was create a massive reading campaign that spent millions and millions of dollars in raising the awareness that as the most developed nation in the world, we can read. So that's the correction, because we typically focus on trying to fix major social, economic, and political issues through programs. Those strategies just simply don't work. Okay. We put money into things and we fund a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, we don't get the outcomes that we're looking for.
And I appreciate that correction, and I really do. So instead of saying program, it's a campaign. So we'll ask this question. How did you come upon the name, the Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read campaign?
I have the credit of the actual naming of the campaign was of one of our former board members when I was the NAACP president, Mr. Nick Wright, was an educator. And when we were conceptualizing how to address this issue, and we got to the point of a name, he said, why don't we name this after Phyllis Wheatley? And the rationale was that if a slave in the 13th century, I believe, could learn to read and write with the help of her slave owners, correct. How is it in the 21st century, with all of the resources that we have at our hands, that African children cannot read? And it's not just a Pinellas or a St. Pete issue. This issue is germane in the United States of America, and only maybe 1 or 2 states in this country have African children reading at a proficient level. And that's why we thought that this was not something that we could just simply, we didn't need another program because we hadn't gotten to figure out how to make programs work, but we definitely needed to raise the issue and do things that help to raise the issue that this was something serious.
And it is serious. And I want to piggyback on what you've said, because as I said earlier, before we started this program, Phyllis Wheatley was about 7 years old when she was captured into slavery. And she was 13 years old when I think her first poem was published. And as she said, it was her slave owners that taught her how to read and write.
That's correct.
And not only did she learn to read and write English, she was learning French or some other languages. So it's a matter of intentionality.
Intentionality. Yes.
Okay, great. Now we know how you came upon the name Phyllis Wheatley. My personal review of your business overview and taking a look at your board of directors suggests you have a pretty strong and diverse board.
Correct.
Is it possible for you to identify 3 or 4 board members and share with us the strengths that they bring to the table?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with Rose Smith Hayes. Many of you know Miss Rose grew, I think, right here in St. Petersburg, background insurance, had a very, very strong active role in community organizations. She was in the group that Martin Rainey started for years. And she didn't just join Phyllis Wheatley right. She didn't really just join the NAACP right away, which is where Phyllis Wheatley evolved. She would come to the education committee meetings and she would come every month. She never joined. I never bothered her about joining because what she was doing was paying attention to the work. She was very intentional on spending in her time in groups that were going to be serious about the work that we're doing. So it was very, and she's our, what do I want to call her? She's our fiscal master. She studies those financials with a razor sharp focus. And our financial officer, of course, is Kent Channer, a local CPA. And if he makes a mistake, she's caught it. So it's very important to have those. You do not want a board full of yes people.
Right.
You do not. You want folks that are serious about the accountability.
Right.
You have Carol McNamee. Carol has been very, very involved in many initiatives in South St. Petersburg. This 80-plus year young woman drives from Safety Harbor to attend meetings and to physically support the work, not talk about it, physically support the work to the detriment of her own health. That has caused me quite a bit of concern. I'm saying, Carrie, you're not going to get in that car and drive by yourself. I'll look up. Here Carol comes, whether it's a city council meeting, but she was committed to the mission. She is committed to the mission. You also have, I want to say, Raphael Weaver, very interesting academician from North County that is a member of the board. Again, people come to observe. They want to see, is this really going to be worth my time to make this trip? And our board meets once a month, the third Saturday of each month, that religiously. And Raphael certainly came for a while before he actually joined or accepted the invitation to serve on the board. And I think it's that kind of diverse background. You have here an insurance businesswoman. You have Carol, who has a strong social service background. And then you have Raphael Weaver, who is an academician, PhD in, I don't want to get the field of study wrong, but his background is education.
Awesome. As I stated earlier, strong and diverse.
Very much so.
Background.
Very much so.
Of these board members. Okay, that's great. How long has the program campaign been in existence?
The campaign was actually visualized in 1718. When I say fiscal year 1718, because 2017, 2018, because it was during that time that it was brought to our attention as a result of asking the question, what could the African community do to help close the achievement gap? We looked at everybody else, and it was Dr. Tanja Williams who consented to hosting a 2-day conversation with community stakeholders. And what came out of that was, what is it that we should be doing to ensure our children could read? And there were 2 things that were brought up: to ensure they could read and address the mental health of our babies. That was a shocker to me, because it was the early learning community that was there talking about the mental health piece. And I said, are you guys sure? And our local early learning communities will tell you many have had to invite mental health providers into their schools to address the trauma that our babies are experiencing. And then we send them off to the public schools thinking that the schools can fix it. They cannot. There are too many issues that we have to address in our homes, in our churches, and in our communities in order for our scholars to be prepared to go to school and learn.
Okay. Awesome. 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 I want you to share with us your campaign's mission and goals.
Well, the mission is real simple: to ensure African children living in St. Petersburg can read. It's from this generation and beyond, meaning that we were not interested in having a cute campaign come about that was only focused on the here and now, but we're talking about future generations, us having to put the institutions in place that support our scholars' ability to read. We were very intentional that throughout the Phyllis Wheatley language, you will not see our children referred to as our scholars referred to as African Americans, because many of our scholars, including those in my family, are not necessarily American.
Right.
They're of African descent, but they may have been born in America. And I think that one of the things that we find in many of our scholars, when our literacy consultant would go out and do the observations in class, and she would come back and say, kids can read. They don't have the confidence. It's the confidence. And much of that confidence is attached to not knowing who you are and not even being made to feel comfortable about who you are. I was sharing with Ray earlier the six-day Juneteenth event that we held this year, which was a massive undertaking in trying to raise the bar on how we celebrate us. This St. Petersburg is a very funny place. We if we are in the arts, you know, the community is rallying around you. If you're a member of the LGBTQ community, we're rallying around you. But when it's sports, yes, oh gosh, baseball. But there just isn't a heightened awareness on being Black or African. And our celebrations are often muted. It's something that we may throw together. And what we have to recognize that if we want our children to perform at a level of excellence, we have to be about excellence. And it's just in my long history here in St. Petersburg, I found that there's a lot of attempt to mute anything that doesn't go along with the status quo. And so I often find myself standing alone, but as a follower of Jesus Christ, I'm always good with that because what you find oftentimes when we're following the crowd and we're following the clique, I said, I would love to follow a crowd or a clique if I can see where it has benefited the African community. And when I look at the social, political, and economic status of the African community in St. Petersburg, we need to dismantle every clique, every organization that is professing to be doing something to impact our community. We need to shut it down.
I think I made that statement to Ms. Scruggs a couple of days ago when I said that the social, economic, political fabric in our community needs to be shredded and started all over. Needs to be shredded and started all over because of these cliques and because of these individuals that are about self. Too many of them in leadership roles, and they're about self.
Money grabs.
Money grabs, and we've talked about that many times. All good. Anything else?
No. Well, let me put it like this. Not if we don't want to be here all night. There.
All right. Next question I want to ask you. What about the strategies? What strategies have been developed and utilized to reach your goals?
Okay. The campaign design is aimed to do a couple of things, and it's all evidence-based, and we know what that means. Evidence-based meaning that it's only practices or strategies that have been looked at and reviewed, not necessarily say that they all work, but that's where you want to start. And one of the things that we use is collective impact, because we recognize that in order for an initiative this size or campaign this size to work, it has to be done in a framework that can bring collaborations together. So we use collective framework as the way we're organized. We have the backup support group. That's what our board is. And the mission has to be one that everybody at the table agrees on. And our mission is simple: to ensure African children living in St. Petersburg can read in this generation and beyond. And so when you have the organization at least on the same page about where you're trying to go, then it helps get us there. The other thing is, one of the things that we recognize that many of the issues relating to our children's inability to read has a lot to do with what is occurring in the home, what is occurring in the community. So our family navigators are very the work there is to connect with the families and the scholars of the families of these scholars, to get them connected to the resources that may be helping them from becoming their child's best advocate. Because one of the messages that we say to our parents in our parent orientations let's keep this real. If you don't care about your child being able to read, don't expect that anybody's going to do more for your child than you are. And so that is a big, big piece, is trying to get the parental involvement and investment, not just involvement, but invested in your children being able to read. The other piece is with the focus is to try to remove barriers of vision. We found that many of our children can't see. So one of our partners with Preserve Vision to help identify vision issues up front. And then the literacy consultant is another strategy where we actually have a literacy consultant that goes into the classroom to observe little Johnny during the reading instructional period. Their job is only to observe, because what they're going to do is then, based on what little Johnny is learning or the strategies that's being taught in the classroom, the literacy consultant is then coming back to with the family navigators, and then they are then coming up with strategies to work with the families so that the families can be utilizing what tools they can use. And then we're also linking those scholars to the program. This is where the programs come in, because we've got to build the skills. But what we're finding is that many of our programs that are being funded are not really providing what the skill base that our scholars need in order to build their reading skills. So that's pretty much the campaign in its the entirety, is aligning what is happening in the community and aligning what is happening with the home with the instruction that the scholar is receiving. Now that's making an assumption that the teacher who's teaching little Johnny the skills to read is on point. And building that alignment, in addition to raising awareness about the importance of our scholars being comfortable in being African children, even though they may not, and again, while they may not see themselves celebrated, it's our role, and a part of our mission is to raise the awareness through these kind of events where our children see themselves being celebrated on a higher level.
Awesome. Awesome. Jay, Russ, anything?
I have a question.
Okay, Jay.
So how are you assessing or measuring your achievement goals, your achievements or the goals through your campaign?
Well, the goal is to ensure our children can read. Our first outcome report, we had 40. This was the beginning of the school year. We had 40 scholars enrolled. Of those, 29 were at level 1. 9 advanced to level 2. 5 advanced to level 3. And 3 progressed to a level 4. 4 of the scholars began the school year at a level 2. Of those 4, 1 advanced to level 3. 1 advanced to a level 4. 2 scholars were enrolled at the beginning of the campaign at a level 4, and 1 remained at a level 4. They did not progress further, and 1 digressed. So those are the only outcomes we're interested in, because we're not trying to pimp and prostitute our children for grant funding.
Right.
We are trying to make sure that the work that we're doing is working, because if it isn't, I've been the first to say, I'll be the first to pull the plug and say, you know what, we thought this is what God called us to. We're not seeing the results, so not interested in anybody's grant money just for the sake of a job. I got a good government job. So that's the piece that we have to be very clear on, is what goals, and we're simply trying to make sure our children can read.
I imagine you will be dealing with a lot of the health component. I know you said trauma in the homes or what have you, like, and I'm talking to the point of attention deficit issues and all that other stuff, concentration, staying focused. So I know that's probably a big thing.
That's one of the pieces that I failed to mention. The most important piece was the mental wellness piece, but I understand. Because that is crucial. Many of our children are facing trauma, and unfortunately, our community is struggling right now with mental health clinicians that are stable enough to support a campaign like this. So that those are kind of some of the realities that we're facing in this journey, that we have some deficits in that area.
Before you, Russ, I want to stick to that point you just made. Our community is struggling. Clinicians, mental health clinicians. Explain that to me.
It has been a challenge to find mental health clinicians that can support the work and support it at a level of the accountability that we demand.
And that's enough right there, because that's what I was hoping to hear, your explanation, because I've heard that from someone else prominent in the community, that the mental health clinicians, the numbers represent a problem for the community. That's number one. We don't have enough. And then the ones that we have may not be the right ones to do the job for whatever reason. So that's what I wanted to hear. Russ?
It is an old African saying, you take a village to raise a child. So my thing to you is, if you look at the community within itself, how is the community, how do you access the level of community and helping with your organization?
Well, I think, Russ, that is one of the biggest challenges, because I am the community. And one of the things that you look at from our board is that all of our leadership is from the community. We're from South St. That's the first start, is getting the people that live. I don't live outside of South St. Pete. I live right on Melrose and 9th Street, and live right there where many of the children that attend Campbell Park. This is our pilot at John Hopkins. So we were very intentional in that way. And one of the outcomes that we consistently strive for is getting African people to be invested in our children, getting African leadership to be invested in our children's success. We have too many elected people that talk about them being involved, but once you try to get to something that's sustainable, something that requires work, commitment, money, it's a whole different ball game. And I say another measure of our success will be the ability for this campaign to garner the support of African people. And one of the concrete ways that I'm measuring this is trying to get 100 African people on the board. And that has been a challenge to get, I mean, not just own it in name only, but committed to a 1 month, one meeting a month, and then supporting the work that we do throughout the year. That has been a challenge.
Okay, as we're nearing the end of the program, and it seems we never have enough time when we have good conversations going on. So I think I'm gonna have enough time to squeeze this one question in. No doubt, having all of our kids reading at or above grade level would represent a humongous achievement. Humongous. It is something that has never been done. What would be an acceptable percentage of competent school-age kids, scholars, reading in Pinellas County for you personally? What percentage would represent personal satisfaction?
Let's use the range A, B, C, D, F in the school system. A representing 90 to 100%. Anything less than 90% in the 21st century is totally unacceptable.
Enough.
I agree.
At this point, we're going to have to say to our guests, thank you very much for being here. You've done a great job in explaining the Phyllis Wheatley Rise to Read campaign.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to my co-host for another job well done. Really appreciate working with these guys. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to the Ray Tampa Podcast, 99.1 FM, The Bird, each and every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. And we ask that you go to YouTube, type in the Ray Tampa Podcast, and you can see them all. With all that being said, good evening.